Hi class. So we are in the middle of week one. The first video lecture dealt with criteria for evaluating arguments and ideas. And these are the kinds of tools that a philosopher would use in almost any topic, right? Trying to see which are the strong arguments, which are the weak. Now we're going to move into some specific content for this course. And this week we're going to be talking about epistemology. And again, what does that mean? This is a big word that has a pretty simple meaning. Episteme means knowledge, logos, rational discourse, epistemology, you get the rational discourse of knowledge or philosophy of knowledge, right? So it's a long word. It basically just means let's talk about knowledge. What is knowledge? How do we define it? How do we gain it? Is knowledge certainty? Should we set the bar lower? These are just some of the questions we'll be talking about in this week, right? But it's really based around knowledge. So what are some of the epistemological theories covered in the reading, right? There's a few. Skepticism, rationalism, empiricism, constructivism. We're going to spend most of our time on 2 and 3, rationalism and empiricism, right? Skepticism, I think, is important. I think we should be skeptical. I think we should put our theories to the fire. I think we should test our knowledge. But in the end, skeptics come to the conclusion that we can't know anything, right? We're sort of left in a constant state of skepticism. And that is not a philosophical view I believe can be lived. And so we don't spend a lot of time on it. What I mean by that is, I think if you take someone up to a roof and say, well, why don't you take a step off the roof? I mean, you never know, right? You don't know if you'll fall. Maybe you'll. No one does that, right? No one lives that way. Everyone has to make judgments, decisions, weigh probabilities. We can't wait until we have certainty. And so this notion of skepticism can't be taken to its natural conclusion. So I don't spend a lot of time there. However, I do value skepticism because I think we do need to apply it to our own views, right? We have to look at our worldview and say, why do I believe what I believe? Is there any good reason to believe what I believe? What evidence do I have? What arguments can I make? So that kind of skepticism is important, right? And we'll be using that as we go through. So we're going to start with rationalism, right? They're going to try to answer some of these questions. What is knowledge? How do I gain knowledge, right? So the first thing, rationalism defines knowledge as certainty. This is vital, right? By certainty, they mean things that you couldn't be wrong about, right? I'm certain of this, which means that there's no way I could possibly be wrong. Certainty means it's true for everyone, right? Whether they know it or not, or agree or not, universal. Once rationalism defines knowledge as certainty, it lays the groundwork for the rest of their theory, right? If I define it that way, then when I ask the next question, which is, okay, well, how do I gain knowledge? Very important question. They're going to answer it in a particular way in light of the fact that knowledge is certainty for the rationalist, right? So keep that in mind. Certainty drives a lot of this. Plato, Descartes, Leibniz, Spinoza, some famous philosophers who are also rationalists. 3 anchor points, okay? So rationalism is a diverse group. The names I just listed, they disagree with each other about all kinds of things. The reason that they're considered rationalists is that they sort of have these similar 3 anchor points in common, okay? Number 1, rationalists argue that reason is the primary source of knowledge. Reason. As opposed to sense experience, right? So many philosophers, many people in our country, in our culture especially, scientific culture, we use, I want to see it, get my hands on it, right? We want to use our senses before we say we know something. And the rationalist argues sense experience is very important. Sense experience gives us access to all kinds of information, but reason is primary. Right? Reason is more objective. If you think about the temperature in a room, everyone's sense experience might be different. Some perceive it as hot, some perceive it as cold. Sense experience is very subjective, but reason is objective. Well, I don't know, let's get a thermometer. Let's get the math, right? Let's get a rational answer to this notion of the temperature in the room. Sense experience is often very particular. Sense experience can give me knowledge of a particular triangle. I can measure the angles of that particular triangle, look at it, 1/2 base times height equals the area, all that stuff. But reason can give me universal knowledge. Reason can tell me every triangle has 3 angles that equal 180, right? Reason can take and broaden it. Sense experience is limited to the particular. It's more subjective. It's more particular. But reason seems to be more universal, more agreed upon, cuts through the subjectivity, right? So they want to emphasize rationality, mathematics, logic, other things, not to the exclusion of sense experience. Sense experience is very important. But remember, the goal is certainty. If the goal is certainty, then I want something that's objective. I want something that is certain. I want something that's universal. But sense experience can't give us universal knowledge because everyone sees the world differently. So sense experience, again, is particular. It's subjective, like the temperature in the room. So do we really want to use sense experience to give us knowledge? Not if we define knowledge as certainty. So they want to go to reason. 2, they argue sense experience is simply unreliable. Everyone has had a dream where they believed they were flying or fighting or running or someone had died, and then they wake up from that dream and they realize, oh my gosh, this whole time I've just been laying in bed, I thought I was shooting a gun or, again, saving the day or trapped in a haunted house or something. Your senses deceive you. You see water on the road in front of you when you're driving, and as you keep driving, you never get to the water and you realize it's a mirage, right? It's the heat waves coming off the road. Your senses deceive you. 2 people see the same event, they don't describe it the same. You go to magic shows, you see someone get cut in half. Your senses deceive. Here's the thing. If your senses have deceived you even once, then can you really be certain of them? How do you know that you're not being deceived now? How do you know you're not in a dream now? How do you know that you're seeing things accurately? How do you know you're not colorblind? How do you know that colorblind people see the world wrong? Maybe the colorblind person sees colors accurately and we see them inaccurately. So there's all kinds of problems with sense experience if your goal is certainty, right? Remember, sense experience is particular, sense experience is subjective, sense experience is fallible. Magic shows are a good one, right? I recently just saw a special by David Blaine, right? It's weird. It's freaky. He is on the street talking with people. He's a magician. And he has a woman think of someone close to her who's passed away. And then she whispers it to her friend. He then takes a drink of water and starts spitting the water onto the ground on the sidewalk, and suddenly, in the midst of the water, the name of the person she had thought of appears, right? On the ground, on the sidewalk. She starts crying and freaking out, right? Weird. He was with a celebrity, the person who created the British version of The Office. I can't think of his name now. And in front of him, he pushed a needle through his bicep muscle. Like you could watch him pushing it through the skin, point right all the way through. I mean, this person's freaking out. They can't believe it, right? He's not showing any signs of pain, nothing, right? And then eventually he pulls it back out. No blood. I mean, you're watching it on television. Very crazy stuff. Like it just seems evil or something. I don't know. Weird, right? But when you go to a magic show, and those that have seen it, right, you've seen things disappear, you've seen people cut in half, you've seen these crazy events. Inside, you know that this can't be real, that your sense experience is deceptive. It's not giving you accurate information. And this is the rationalist point. When push comes to shove, when you've got to choose between trusting your reason, trusting your senses, you trust your reason. You say to yourself, he can't push a needle through his arm. There's got to be an illusion. things can't just disappear. There's got to be a trick. And so when you've got to decide, what am I going to believe? The magic or my reason? You trust your reason, and it's more reliable. It's more universal. It's more likely to get you to certainty. Then finally, the third anchor point, and this is the most important one. This is the biggest piece of the argument, right? Rationalism argues some knowledge is a priori, right? A priori. And this means you have some knowledge that you're born with. It's innate, okay? There's a few things I need to say here. One, not all knowledge is a priori. Lots of knowledge is sense experience. But there are a few fundamental things that are a priori. Rationalists will argue certain things maybe about God's existence, morality, logic, mathematics. There's like 4 or 5 categories that are often thought to be a priori. We have knowledge because we have reason. We're born with that faculty, and therefore we have access to this. We don't need sense experience for this knowledge. Innate, a priori. But not all things are a priori, so don't make that mistake. Lots of students make that mistake. Only some fundamental things are a priori. The other thing that's important is a priori knowledge is not the same as instinct. Those are very different. So a baby's instinct to suckle or to grab, right, to cry, that's not knowledge. Knowledge means I'm aware of something. I know something cognitively, okay? So don't think of instinct, think knowledge. But the idea is there are certain things that we know and that we don't need sense experience for. A priori, think of priori like prior to experience. So I have knowledge and I don't need experience for it, I just need reason. What would be some examples? I'll give some. The concept of perfection. You go to any culture, you go to any religion, there's a concept of perfection inside of that culture, that religion, right? But have you ever experienced perfection? Has anybody experienced perfection? I think the answer is no, we haven't. I've experienced imperfection, but I've never experienced perfection. Okay, the rationalist says, where did that concept come from? How can you have the concept of perfection inside of you, but you've never experienced it? Well, it couldn't be from senses then. It's got to be innate. We have access to it, it's inside. Someone might say, yeah, well, you experience imperfection and that's how you know. Okay, well, how would I know that something's imperfect unless I already have the concept of perfection inside me to measure, right? If I say this is imperfect, well, then didn't I need some standard inside of me to know that it was imperfect? Or else I would just think it was perfect. But somehow we know things aren't perfect. There seems to be a concept inside of us, but it didn't come about through sense experience, it seems. So the rationalist argues the concept of perfection seems to be a priori, innate. Right? We have it, but we didn't use our senses to get it. Same thing with the infinite. We've never experienced the infinite, only the finite. But yet I have the concept of the infinite inside me. Every culture does, it seems to be universal. It must be a priori. Descartes will actually use this to argue for God's existence. How could an imperfect being like me have the concept of perfection inside of me? It must have come from a perfect being. God must have granted us this knowledge. How could a finite being like me have the concept of the infinite inside of me already? It must have come from an infinite being. And that's where the a priori knowledge comes from, according to Descartes. So these things would be a priori. This is a very important argument. Are there a priori concepts, or is everything learned by experience, right? And this is a debate we're going to have for this week. It's the most important debate for this week. Your CAP paper is going to be about this topic. Your CAP paper this week will be, is morality all learned from experience? Is all morality learned from experience, culture, upbringing, parents, or is some morality innate? Right? And you have to make an argument one way or the other. Is morality learned? Is some of it, maybe some of it's learned, but is some of it innate? If even one moral principle, 2 moral principles are a priori, then the rationalist wins. You don't have to argue that all morality is a priori. only that some moral principles are. Or, as the empiricist will argue, or is all morality learned from experience? Why is this important, right? This debate. Why would this matter? Well, again, think about it. If something is a priori, we don't need experience for it, we just need reason. Who has access to that knowledge? Everyone. Every rational creature would have access to that knowledge. That's not true of sense experience. Not everyone has access to my office to know the things I'm looking at, to have knowledge of my wife or my children. You'd have to meet me or see a picture of them. But if something's a priori, anyone with reason has access to it. Well, this makes it universal. If it's universal, it's objective. If it's objective, we can be certain of it. And we've met our goal. So this debate is so important. If certain things are a priori, everyone has access to them, they're universal and certain. However, if everything is learned from experience and nothing is innate, and everyone's experiences are different, every cultural experience is different, then how could we ever be certain? If knowledge comes from experience and experience differs from person to person, are we left with subjectivity? So this debate really matters in terms of objectivity and subjectivity. And this is true with morality, which is what you're going to write on. If morality is all learned from culture and parents and religion and upbringing, well then everyone's experience and everyone's upbringing and everyone's culture is different. Does that make morality subjective? Or are there certain moral principles that are a priori, innate, and therefore universal and applicable to all people? Something to think about. All right, I hope this helps. This is sort of an introduction to rationalism. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see you online.